Live from Dr. Henry Armitage Memorial High School AV Room, welcome to episode 119 of the Horror Podcast. My name's Tyler, and I run Signal Horizon, a magazine dedicated to exploring genre fiction in and out of the classroom.
And I'm Oren Gray, Monster Ambassador at Signal Horizon, and the guy who usually picks the bad movies we watch.
Yeah, we'll return to that bad movie comment in just a bit. But tonight on the Horror Podcast, we're going to have a lot of fun because we're going to spend some time talking about what we've been watching and reading. We're going to help you find some free genre content on the internet. And finally, we're going to spend the remainder of the episode exploring the critical darling FearDotCom. So before we get there, Oren, what's going on in your neck of the woods? What have you been reading, watching, all that jazz?
As usual, I haven't been watching anything new. I've been catching up on some Japanese exploitation movies that have been on my watch list forever.
Okay.
So I watched Evil Dead Trap from 1988 and Blind Beast from 1969, both of which are good, but not for most people, probably.
Those are my favorite comments. Yeah, they're awesome for the three people that are going to really love these movies.
They're weird stuff, so yeah.
All right, so give me, clearly I know a little bit about American exploitation and that kind of stuff, and its roots in counterculture I think are really interesting. What's the deal with Japanese exploitation flicks?
So it's that's a whole episodes subject, but Blind Beast specifically is from 1969, so it's kind of the older one, and it's definitely a pinky violence type movie. So there's a lot of nudity, but it's about famously it's about this sculptor who's blind, who's obsessed with the female form, who kidnaps this woman to be his artist model. But
okay.
the thing that makes it weird is that he keeps her in his studio, which is made up entirely of oversized sculptures of parts of women's bodies. So there's a wall that's all eyes, a wall that's all lips, a wall that's all noses, and they're huge. Each nose or whatever is the size of a person.
That's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, and then in the center there are these two gigantic reclining women full figures that he's sculpted that most of the movie takes place with him climbing around on them.
Whoa.
Because the movie almost entirely takes place in this one room.
Man, so, all right.
It's very weird, but it's very famous for that. It's a good movie. It's just it's got a lot of psychosexual stuff going on, a lot of weird Stockholm syndrome stuff going on.
So my my small area movies that I really, really love are typically horror movies that could very easily be a stage show, could be
right.
Stage theater,
Yeah, you'd love this. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll have to check it out.
This has 3 actors total, and takes place almost entirely in one room. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So, did you get these to cover, or is this just?
No, these are ones that have been they've been on my watch list literally for, I don't know, 2 or 3 decades, and just ever since I first heard about them, they've been they sounded weird and interesting, and I wanted to see them, but I just never got around to it because they were hard to get, or I just didn't get around to it for whatever reason. So I ended up picking them up from the library, because I was watching something else. I don't remember what, and it reminded me, I need to get to these, and so I just put a hold for a couple of them, and they came in at the same time. So
love it. All right, I'll have to figure out a way to check them out. I like it.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, I am coming off of my I don't know. I saw something ridiculous 13 movies in I don't know 4.5 days or something, but for South by Southwest. So. I would say what am I watching will be sprinkled with some of those things that I just haven't had the time to cover. But the one standout that I don't think got a mention and hasn't gotten a write-up yet, which is absolutely fantastic, is Off Season, which is directed by Mickey Keating. And it's so good. It is this kind of... it takes... what I would argue is probably kind of a hackneyed setup in that, a young person gets called back to a seaside village to deal with family stuff, right? At least in this particular instance, I think it's her father who has passed away, and she's got to come deal with a gravesite that has been desecrated. Okay. And their Lovecraftian weirdness, kind of dominates the rest of the movie. But I really... there's a great kind of Cthulhu reveal towards the end of the movie that you really only get in silhouette, which reminds me a lot of Sweetheart. But yeah, man, I totally dug that, and you should check it out too. It hasn't gotten a general release date, so I can't help you there. But what I can help you with is the newest series on Amazon, which is I've kind of billed it to everybody that's been listening as Amazon's answer to Lovecraft Country, which is ostensibly a horror film, but it's really about racism and, like some deeper issues told through the lens of a loose Lovecraftian tale. But the Amazon show Them uses kind of the same motif. An all-black family moves to a not yet integrated area of the country. In fact, they moved to Compton, California, and in the 1950s, and there is actual real supernatural horror stuff that happens, but holy shit, the real fear of the horror, the real fear of the show is their treatment. There is a scene where a group of white students behaves incredibly racist towards the African-American high school student that is there. And the teacher writes her up for being a distraction and not them up. And it's like a fucking gut punch, man. I was like, oh, geez. So yeah, it's coming out very soon. I think here in less than a month, you'll be able to check it out. Cool. And it should be episodic, which is great. I've seen the first 2 episodes. It would be worth Prime to sign up and check it out. So if you like your horror with a little bit of attitude and politics, yeah, that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
But also, if you're one of those assholes that thinks horror isn't political, then maybe don't check it out because you've missed the point of everything so far. So you'll probably miss the point of that too. So chances are you're not listening or watching.
Probably, yeah. So. You probably tuned out a long time ago. So.
Yeah, you're like, what the hell is this? Yeah, yeah. Okay, so here's your dark corner of the web. Some promotion of just the best way to kill some time that I've had, which is the Flash game Forgotten Hill, which is real loosely based off of Silent Hill. But there's a whole... I think there are 4 or 5 games, and I'll stick the link here in the show notes so you can find it. But yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's a little bit creepy. It's perfect, man.
Sweet.
Yeah. So really, we have an extended housekeeping here that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about before we go into FearDotCom. You have something on our list here of housekeeping promotional stuff. What's going on?
So it's not for me. It's just a Kickstarter that I ran into. Someone I know on Facebook's doing it. But Derek M. Koch, he does the Monster Kid Radio podcast. He is doing a Kickstarter for a supplement for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons that's monsters from old public domain horror movies.
Cool.
So I just wanted to post that up there because that's all of my interests colliding together into one thing.
It's like a fully immersed horrified, right? That's what it sounds like.
Something like that, yeah. Except these are shittier movies than that. These are these are The Crawling Eye and the thing they just unlocked was they just unlocked their first stretch goal, which is the Manos from Manos: The Hands of Fate as a warlock patron. So
I like it. All right.
It's delightful. It looks delightful anyway.
Very good. Well, we will include the link here as well. Next, Deep Cuts Horror Trivia, sponsored by Signal Horizon, and I'll be the trivia host there, not this upcoming Friday if you're listening live, but next Friday. If you come on out to the Big Rip at 7 o'clock, I have so much swag that I've just gathered over the last year because I haven't been able to see people. I'm just looking to give stuff away. So come play with us. It will be socially distanced. We'll all have masks on when we're not, drinking or eating. I will have a mask on reading clues, which means everything will sound a little like this. But hey, that's all right. I will be happy to reread clues as many times as I can. But yeah, Deep Cuts Horror Trivia. It's going to be not the 2nd, but the 9th. So April 9th, come on out to the Big Rip. I'd love to see everybody there. Last but not least on our laundry list of stuff that we need to talk about is Oren and I are going to bring the Horror Podcast on the road. And by on the road, we mean we are going to be part of the digital content available for all of the Panic Fest subscribers. So Panic Fest is all next week and the week after, I think, right? I think it starts
I don't know. I think it starts the 8th and runs to the 18th or something like that. Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So Thursday through like the next weekend or something.
Yeah. So if you buy one of those hybrid tickets, then you will get access to not only all the cool ass movies, because there are a ton of things. Like, I don't even.
Oh my God. There's so many.
Yeah. So you'll get access to all of that, plus a whole bunch of different podcast, live shows, pre-recorded stuff. There's just a ton of content available. If you are a horror lover like we are, I think it's totally worth it. So check it out. I think that may be it. Do we have?
I think that's it. That's all I know about.
Okay. Oh, I do want to give a real quick shout out. This is a thing that I read right before we came on the air. So the Coterie is our children's theater. Okay. It's based downtown here in Kansas City. They do remarkably amazing stuff. Once upon a time, I was a theater major. So like I have a soft spot for stuff like that, but their first show, everybody's kind of de-thawing coming out of COVID, doing whatever. Their first real big show that they've promoted, or at least that I've taken notice of, is here's the name of it, okay? How to Snag a Sea Monster. It is puppet theater sponsored and produced by the Mesner Puppet Theater, which is the other big thing here in town. And hold on, let me see if I can find I think I can find it real quick, and I'm going to read you what this play is about. Like I almost feel like we need to go watch it and go cover it. Okay.
I would totally cap.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. So here we go. Monstrous wave washes a creature ashore. The people of small Cape Cod town hear it wailing. It's a sea monster in their midst. No, it's a baby as big as a house. The village adopts the giant baby, whom they name Stormalong, Stormy for short. Growing to over 24 feet, Stormy struggles to fit in and chooses a life at sea aboard a clipper ship to find a place in the world. Meanwhile, the bullying sea monster, the colossal Kraken, torments the village, and only Stormy is big enough to save them all. I mean, come on. I'm so excited to check it out. It's going to be amazing. So
I'm just really enjoying picturing the 24-foot sea monster on a boat.
Yeah, the puppets are going to be awesome.
It's just fully a third of the boat.
And I guarantee you in my mind, it is this kind of child version of like Little Shop of Horrors or something, Like, I cannot wait to see the puppets. I'm super jazzed.
It seems very cool.
Yeah. I may have to dress up the little one and go out to the theater. So, okay, man, I think it's time.
It is time.
All right. So navigate on down to FearDotCom. Don't do that, because then you would lose us. But maybe later. Here is our essential question tonight. Can we call FearDotCom hard-boiled? Before we get to the synopsis, what do you say? You want to check out the trailer first?
Do you like to watch?
Detective, we've got a white male, 54 years old.
What happened to him? Must have been into computers, this guy.
Do you want to see more?
We have another one.
There are 5 bodies so far.
Oh my god. The one thing that all the victims have in common is the fear site.
We gotta get these computers checked out.
I'm waiting for you. Don't you want to play with me?
Every one of these victims died 2 days to the minute after they first logged on to the fear site.
The things on that site no one has ever seen before.
It's spreading.
Police!
There's no telling how many are infected.
Can you promise me one thing? That you won't visit that site?
I'm coming for you. Do you want to play?
To catch the killer, he must become the victim.
Sorry, did I scare you?
All right, so as trailers go, that's not too bad. The Internet Movie Database gives us a bit more information. In their summary, they argue a New York City detective investigates mysterious deaths occurring 48 hours after users log on to a site named FearDotCom. Now, before I ask you why you picked this critical darling here, I must correct the Internet Movie Database. The actual name of the website is www.fear. It's www.feardotcom.com.
So everyone on Letterboxd, like their whole review is just pointing that out. Everyone, and so like I'm 100% sure, right? So they named this movie and they registered the website, right? So they when this movie came out, fear.com took you to the website for this movie, right?
Okay.
And that was clearly not in the script because they never in the movie say the name of the website ever once.
That's because it sounds stupid.
Right.
They'd be like, what is the name of the website? It's fear.com.com.
You see them type it in, like you see it appear on the screen, but they never say it ever.
Yeah.
They didn't know what it was, right? When they were filming the movie, like the screenplay doesn't say it. They never say it. They didn't know what it was. Like that was added in post. That was 100% added in post. And it was like, well, we don't own the rights to fear.com. We don't own that domain. So now it's fear.com.com. We own that domain. So let's just put that in the movie. Right? That's clearly what they did. 100%.
Well, I immediately thought of, and there are still people that do it that like will buy names as like real estate investments, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like the really common. I'll link to the article here. I didn't include it in the show notes, but I will. It's really popular for people to look at 4 and 5 star like football, basketball, baseball recruits, and like let's say I would be a professional athlete, then at 16 they'll be like, oh my god, this is the guy, right? So they'll buy tylerunsel.com, right? And then Tyler Unsel hits it big and they're like, hey, for $100,000 or whatever, you can have your name, and then you get it. Clearly somebody was thinking long game here and was like, pay us $100,000 for fear.com, and fear.com was like, fuck you, we'll just call it fear.com.com.
Right. Yep.
Which then led me down, like, imagine if fear.com.com wasn't available, would they just call it fear.com.com.com? You know? And until it's like 14 billion.
Movie.com, and that's what they type in every time.
I love it. Okay, so here's the thing. I saw this movie when it came out, and I remember thinking that was okay. That it was worth the ticket to admission. So I was terribly, terribly wrong. It is not wonderful, but I want to hear, because you have very strong opinions about this film. talk to me about why we decided to talk about FearDotCom today.
I mean, so no, it's not good by any normal definition of good. The internet is very wrong about how bad it is. Like,
Okay.
This thing has a 3% on Rotten Tomatoes. This is a much better than 3% movie.
Okay, I'm listening. Convince me.
It's a much worse than like 80% movie. That's definitely true, but it's much better than 3%. Come on. But no, like, so this movie is, as the trailer pointed out, by the same guy who made House on Haunted Hill, which is an actual good movie.
Oh yeah,
with the same aesthetic. So if you want this, just go watch it. It's actually been good and also has everything this one has. So there's nothing for you here unless you watched it and want more, in which case, go ahead, go to town. But
you have an excellent write-up for us in Signal Horizon about why and how great that remake is, right? So yeah. I'm with you on that page. I think it is a tremendous film.
So like the aesthetics and the style and the visuals of this film are incredibly rich, especially given how shitty the script they're wrapped around is. Because the script makes no damn sense. Like, leaving aside the fact that the internet never worked like this, even remotely, it also just makes no sense. Like, every aspect of the script feels tacked on and doesn't make any sense. Just everything. There's not one decision in this entire movie that is a smart decision from a script level. Like, not one.
Yeah.
But from a visual level, there's not one decision that isn't brilliant. This movie looks fucking great. The only problems it has are the CGI, which are dodgy. But they're also from 2002, so what do you want?
Yeah. Man, so the visuals are brilliant. That is like,
love these visuals.
Okay, all right. So let's spend some time talking about it, because I think I agree with you that there are some really interesting things to look at and to kind of immerse yourself in, but also there are some things that, like, just with the movie generally, that hurt it, right? Certainly the script is not great, but like, the movie is really dark. I don't mean like dark thematically. It certainly is that. Obviously, it's a scary movie.
It's really dimly lit. Yes.
Yeah. So like 90% of the time, I felt a little bit like I was playing a Resident Evil game, and when it's like turn your the color of your television or whatever, the brightness of your television down until you can barely see the writing or whatever. And I turned it down way too much. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck is going on half of the time. I was like, clearly, something is going on with the main character, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So like, I think that the visuals are really good, for all sorts of reasons. They echo, German expressionist films from the 20s, which we'll get into in a minute, because Roger Ebert really liked the visuals of this movie too, and gave it this bizarre, we'll link to it, but he gave it this bizarrely glowing 2-star review where he's like, basically it's clear that he loved this movie but can't wholeheartedly recommend it. Like, he knows better, which is more or less how I feel about it too, honestly. Like, I love this movie, you being anyone but me probably won't.
You have a particular aesthetic, one that I adore, but go ahead.
But more than that, more than just that it taps into like a lot of the kinds of movies I love. And I think William Malone's aesthetic is really fascinating. Like, a lot of movies have an aesthetic, but I think his is really interesting, and I'm bummed that we really only get it for 2.5 movies. But like, this one does a lot of really interesting stuff. Like, for example, the interiors are all incredibly dark, but the exteriors are all very light, actually. Every time anybody goes outside, even though it's raining all the time, it's always very nicely lit, which means the interiors are dark on purpose. And they're all very claustrophobic. The people, when they're like whenever anyone is in a room, they're always isolated in a pocket of light in a big dark area. So like wherever they are is lit and everything around them is dark, which makes them trapped inside that pocket of light. In my write-up for this, I compared them to like insects trapped in amber. And so it gives all the interiors claustrophobic, and all the people are trapped, and it, you know, replicates sort of the spirit being trapped inside the website, which again doesn't make any sense, but whatever. It echoes all the themes that the movie's trying to have and doesn't really. Like this is Style doing literally all the lifting for a script that doesn't do any.
Yeah, I think that is pretty fair, because I love the idea of being trapped in light and all of that. So in that way, it reminded me a lot aesthetically of, first off, this film is really damp. Like, it is not only
it is raining all the time.
Yeah, and it even feels wet inside, right?
Yep.
Like, even like the kind of dark room that we get at the end of the film, that's full of like I don't know, like machinery and like chain, and it's supposed to be very mechanical. Still feels very wet and damp and
There's
soggy,
lots of mildew and everything's decaying. Yeah.
So in that way, it reminded me of another film that you and I absolutely love, which is Dark City, right? Like that whole movie feels like it's under like an inch or so of water in everything.
Yep.
And I'm not sure. For me, I like it reminded me vaguely of like the idea that like the interconnectedness of all of the water reminded me real vaguely to how we talked about the internet back in the early aughts, you know, like this idea that it connects all these disparate parts of our world. And, you know, when we were just starting to tap into like that side of social consciousness that was like, maybe that's not a good thing, you know, like maybe allowing people that, you know, traffic in conspiracy theories, the ability to communicate with other people that traffic in conspiracy theories will not lead to good outcomes. Who would have known? Yeah. So like, I appreciated the aesthetic, I guess, of the film.
Yeah.
For me, that just contributed to more of the mess, right? Because it is a film about technology. Right, there's no getting around it, but it approaches it in a like steampunk kind of way.
Right. It's the weirdest thing. Like tapping William Malone in the first place to direct this film seems weird, and then giving him the amount of free reign to production design it that I'm assuming they did, given that it is very much his aesthetic, also seems really weird, because like it's a movie that doesn't feel like it comes from the age when there is internet, right? It's a movie that feels like the 20s as put through a post-industrial filter, so like everything's dingy rusted metal, but also from the 1920s somehow. And none of that works for the internet at all. Like it's the most low-tech movie about the internet ever.
Yeah. Like I envision at one point in time, there's like a computer laying on the ground. And did you notice, like, even in the dingiest of dingy areas, they get great internet access, right? like everybody's got high speed back in 2002, even if you live in a slum in like New York City or wherever.
Which everyone in this clearly does.
Right. Like nobody lives in a nice house. Yeah.
Right.
And like, I expected when they look at the guts of the computer to like have like a hamster running around, like, you know, that's the thing that is powering it, you know, it is very weird in that way, you know.
It is super uninterested. It is super uninterested in the technological aspect of this.
Oh yeah.
Narrative. Like, you never see a computer that isn't broken, pretty much. Like, it is super uninterested in the technology. Like, it's very clear that he wants to be making a movie other than the movie he's making. Which I don't blame him. That script is garbage.
Yeah. Well, and in that way, like, the computer becomes like the Necromonicon, right? Like it becomes this like wholly possessed thing that can do things, in the corporeal sense that, books or in this way computers normally can't. And so like, of course he's not interested in it because he doesn't have to be, like he is just going to do this thing, and a computer in this website are just the way to get it there.
Yeah.
Cause
they're just a MacGuffin. Like,
yeah. And like, there's not, I watched this 2 or 3 times in preparation for this, looking for maybe a message about technology or like a lesson to be learned. Like, even if it was like be careful, technology can, like the kind of really basic, be scared of technology, sci-fi horror stuff. And like, there's not even that here.
No.
Like,
and like, even when it starts to maybe think about having a message, there's the other dude to deflate it when they go to interview the guy who wrote the book that they're investigating. And he's like, no, it was all bullshit. I just needed to buy a car.
Yeah. So like, the computer reminded me of like a magic box, right? A magic box of which, spirits and demons and, at least, redemption can spring out of or whatnot. So, so my question, right, before we get into kind of trying to answer the essential question, like, is the website haunted? Is that the message?
So like, okay. So when I wrote this up the first time, I asked this question, and watching it back through, I tried to figure it out. And like, okay, so clearly the website's what kills them, right? They go to the website and then they die.
Right.
48 hours later. And it implies very heavily that she, the ghost of the first victim, is what's killing people, right? You see her, she's who asks the questions when they go to the website, she's who talks to them. So presumably then, right, her ghost is in the website somehow and is killing people. Fine, okay. She says, in fact, that she's killing them because they're guilty of watching. Sure, whatever. Why then is he running the website?
Yeah.
And if he is running the website and she's in it, why can't she kill him until after they go there to confront him and then pull the website up?
Yeah.
If he's running it the whole time, it doesn't make any sense. Again, it makes no fucking sense.
Well, that's the big moment, right? Is the Steven Dorff who's like like he's been beaten up by the bad guy or whatever, and he's been
shot. In fact.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, he got shot in the chest, right, or wherever, and he like pulls himself up and he grabs this keyboard and he's like clickety clack FearDotCom and like that's the thing, right? So as somebody that runs a website but is far from an expert on it, you have to log into the website to like update it and shit. There's no getting around it.
My favorite bit, right? My favorite bit of all the stupid and completely unnecessary stupid shit in this script is when Natasha McElhoney's character goes and she's interviewing the mother of the first victim, and she's showing her pictures from the website, and the mother's explaining, oh yes, she was really scared of knives because also the layers of stupid like expository weirdness that this thing layers in, because like it also kills you with your worst fear, apparently, even though you never really see that happen, and it doesn't explain why at all particularly. But anyway, so it's explaining that her worst fear was like knives and things because she was a hemophiliac. Right, she was a hemophiliac, so she was scared of knives and scissors and anything sharp, and so he cut her up, and so she died for worst fear. Whatever, sure. Then, like literally the next sentence, I think she's showing her these pictures, and she says, "Oh yes, this is the like abandoned industrial park where she used to play as a child." Yes, because when I'm a hemophiliac and really afraid of getting cut on something, I go play in the abandoned industrial park.
Right. Oh, there's some rusty metal. That sounds great. I wonder if I can hop up and down on it. Yeah.
Let me take my spooky ball that I carry everywhere and go play in the rusty metal place. Yeah, no, that's what the fuck.
Yeah.
What the actual fuck.
Well, and at the end of the day, that's the thing, right? Like, it's all of the not good what the fuck, but come on guys, we gotta make the effort. I think nobody was there to try to draw all of these things together into a coherent movie. So what we got was a terrible plot, but a kind of interesting visual movie when you remove all of the audio.
Right. Like this movie either, which Ebert in his review literally suggests you do. Like he suggests you rent it and turn the sound off. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But like, so either, and I've not looked into the background of this movie, so I have no idea how it got made, but I feel like one of two things happened, right? Either this is a movie where the studio interfered a bunch, and so you have a bunch of different drafts of the script, each one of which may have once made sense, but all of which layered on top of each other no longer do. Or the script needed a bunch more fucking drafts.
Yeah.
Because the script is garbage. One of the two. And I don't know which.
My guess is the latter and not the... It doesn't feel like a bunch of disconnected threads that may have made sense. For me, it seems like, okay, we wrote the first or second draft of this movie. Now we have to go back and add a bunch of shit purely to fix some of the continuity things that, may be problematic down the road. Which is, again, not a professional scriptwriter. So there are plenty of screenwriters that, that can chime in here and tell me why I'm wrong. But like, that doesn't feel like the right process. I don't know. I don't know.
It obviously wasn't in this case.
Yeah.
For all that I think this movie is much better than a 3% on Rotten Tomatoes, it's not good. Again, it's and all of it's better. Literally all of it. 100% of what makes this movie good is like visual. It's all style. None of it is plot.
Okay, and I think part of the other reason why you should turn the sound off while you watch this, Stephen Dorff is not. This is not his A game here.
Right. And I don't think this is anyone's A game. Frankly.
I think.
Stephen Rea delivers his lines with conviction. I will give him that, but it's definitely not his best work.
I think Udo Kier's 10 minutes of screen time is fan-fucking-tastic. What are you talking about?
10 minutes is an awfully generous description of how much time Udo Kier was on screen.
Well, and that is amazing to me. Like a pretty well-known, whatever. It's like, oh, sure, I'll be in this. I'll die 5 minutes into this very poorly, very strange film. Okay.
So like one of the things I love. So like, so you've got Udo Kier, right? Like the layers of like horror nerd shit in this movie are wonky. So like you've got Udo Kier. So that right there, you've got horror nerd shit, right? He's a character named Polidori for no reason.
I saw that billing. I was like, whoa.
Right? Who walks past graffiti that says Dr. Gogol on it, in order to encounter a little girl who looks pretty much exactly like the ghost from Kill Baby Kill, then get hit by a train, and that's all like in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, like, the first 5 minutes aren't wonderful, but it's kind of an interesting aesthetic. I like little girl with a bouncing white ball. It's kind of creepy. The CGI is not wonderful, but come on, like anything from 2002, we would probably give a little bit of room to maneuver there. So yeah, like you get very, very excited, and then the rest of this stuff happens, and it's like I don't have a problem when actors or actresses make big choices, right? Even if they don't work for me, I'm like, that is a big and brave choice. That's cool. I don't know what you're doing there, but it's something. I think Stephen Dorff is like channeling a generic Private Eye, without any discernible personality. Like, do we get a ton of his background? Do we get anything of substance about him?
So this is great too. We get that he's afraid of germs, which theoretically is going to come back up in how he gets killed, but no. I don't even think that doesn't play an important role in the plot or anything. He doesn't have to like dig through like a bunch of bugs to get a key. It's just like it doesn't play an important role in the plot. Why Natasha McElhone is a Department of Health person?
Yeah.
Why is she a Department of Health person instead of, say, another cop?
Well, and it's freaking laughable now watching
Is
this
it relevant? I don't know.
post COVID that like anybody would be like, we got to bring the Department of Health in here to figure out what we need to do. I'm going to be like, nobody's going to fucking listen to him anyways. You know, like whatever her recommendation is, about 10% of the population is going to be like, screw that. I'm going to that website. I'm going to watch that website 24 hours a day.
She needed to be there to tell the police to not touch the corpses in crime scenes.
Yeah. And then we pretty well dismiss her role 5 minutes into it when she gets the phone call that it's like, it's not a disease. And then like, then go back home, you know,
right.
Like go back to the Department of Health. Right. Like,
yeah, I don't.
I thought to myself, the police have an extraordinary amount of deference to the Department of Health because they're like sharing crime scene photos and notes and like I don't know a ton about city bureaucracy, but I am relatively certain it doesn't function like this. So
it's all very strange to me.
You gotta really build up the
but also the police have no real like internal structure for how things operate. Like there's no one that Stephen Dorff answers to.
Yeah, like no chief or whatever.
Right. He has no boss that I can discern. He just kind of does whatever he feels like.
Okay, so I think this is a good time to get back to the question, right? So can this movie be classified as something that is hard-boiled, right? And I spent way too freaking long trying to figure out what exactly hard-boiled meant, okay?
Fair enough.
So crimereads.com, and I'll put a link to the article if you want to read more about what it is to be hard-boiled. But they have a pretty interesting definition. Here's how you tell if something is hard-boiled. It doesn't break in your hand and get everywhere. No, that's a terrible joke. Their definition is a snap brim hat, a trench coat, and a frosted glass office door may well appear on a dust jacket, or in this case, on screen. If a handgun isn't illustrated, be surprised. The flap copy may include such words as Dame P.I. Dick Shamus for hire and a case for. And the cover, or in this case, I think the cover art, is probably dark with a lonely street or storefront, possibly with rain. So, what do we think? Is it hard-boiled?
I mean, not by that definition, certainly. We have rain, and that's about it from that list.
I am relatively certain he wears a trench coat.
I'm not actually positive he does. He might,
shit.
though. Yeah, I don't know.
So in this case, right, maybe I'm looking too hard. Like the dame that comes like asking him for help or whatever in this context it's got to be the Department of Health, person. Obviously, like they're playing a little bit with the motif here, but
I mean, and you could also construe the ghost girl actually as having, because he was already working her case when the movie starts.
Right.
So like he's got photographs of her and stuff in his like desk drawer or whatever. So.
Yeah. Okay. So there's kind of a dame theoretically. The cover art and the rest of this film is incredibly dark, as we discussed earlier. So maybe,
okay. So I'm not positive what it takes to be hard boiled and what it doesn't. There's definitely enough smoking in this movie for it to be hard boiled. Like one character alone smokes like 20 cigarettes in this movie.
Yeah.
And he's like a throwaway character. But anyway, it's definitely noir.
Okay.
Like, whether it's hard-boiled or not, I am not qualified to say, but it is definitely noir. Like, it's got all the elements of noir. It's got the long, heavy, dark shadows. It's got the very oppressive atmosphere. It's got the sense that there's not really any way to win.
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
It's got... what was I going to say?
So
I lost it, but yeah, it's
okay.
The Dutch angles actually that you wrote in the notes. Like Dutch angles were definitely used a lot in noir films. Like it's definitely channeling noir films, 100%.
Yeah, like in the first 5 minutes of this film, there were more Dutch angles. I said than Amsterdam. I couldn't come up with something more Dutch than a pair of clogs. I don't fucking know. but there are probably no angles in clocks. Anyway, that's a different show. But yeah, man, like I think it's trying really hard to meet that aesthetic that at least you and I most recognize in Fincher's movie Seven, in that it feels like a modern noir, a modern kind of Law and Order set piece with all of this supernatural stuff thrown in, which doesn't make it cool. It just makes it confusing. Maybe?
I mean, like, I think, and this may be giving Malone too much credit because I don't really know the guy and I don't know anything about him, but based on, a whole filmography of like 3.5 movies, I think it's another one of those situations where he's really interested in the visual of it and isn't particularly interested in like the Law and Order, like police procedural aspect. And so he just ignores it.
Okay.
So, like, visually, it's a film noir. Procedurally,
Well, and in that way, like, I might, again, like, this isn't necessarily my genre or aesthetic, right? There are some people that love that kind of stuff. And bully to them, I think that it's kind of interesting. But, like, at least I subdivide that, right? Like, you can have a noir film, which kind of fits a more police procedural, that includes, like, the public investigation of a crime and that kind of stuff. Right. And then probably what being more hard boiled is the more PI angle, that they're not doing a public good. They're hired by somebody separate, whatever. And I think at least in this angle, the film wants to be like hard boiled, but still like there's got to be a reason why these two show up at this crime scene. And they're like, why not make them public employees? One a cop, one whatever. Right. And so that's just even more why I think this film's a bit of a mess, because even within the subgenre, it doesn't exactly know what it wants.
Right.
Or wants too much. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that you have knives being this, like, knives are a killer white ball, or I guess the subway or whatever it is that ultimately kills our first character. But like the first time I think we see a gun in this entire film is when it's used to, shoot Stephen Dorff at the end, or at least that when I was going back through it, couldn't think of another time.
Yeah, because I mean, so Stephen Dorff pulls a gun on Stephen Rhea in the end, and then Stephen Rhea shoots him with a gun. He shoots him with a Luger of all things, which feels like it's another one of those like weird aesthetic choices that I feel like is just Malone really loving old movies. And it's like, oh no, here's a Luger. That's definitely what he's got.
I think he is like at least with this film, he feels like a German file, right? Like somebody, because there's a main character that's German here. There is at one point I thought maybe I heard some Rammstein in the background. Like
there was definitely Rammstein on the soundtrack. Yeah.
Okay, great, right? So like you have all of these and 100% like German expressionism and that kind of stuff. Like he's very into German culture, and this movie really highlights that, I think.
Yeah, for no reason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, there's no reason for it.
That doesn't support the movie in any meaningful way.
No, like it just adds like this general level of weirdness to one of the victims that like they say some shit in German and then like he has an accent. That's essentially it. Yeah. And it's not even done in, at least that character is not done in the context that like we appreciate German culture. He's kind of like the quintessential weird European guy, like he's got a weird haircut and
he's a punk. I mean, he's a punk rocker. Like he's a punk, in not in the dismissive sense, in the subculture sense, right? Yeah. Like he's definitely a punk, and he's just from Germany for no reason.
Yeah.
And he mostly speaks German to them.
Right.
But there's no mystery they solve because they find someone who speaks German to translate or something. No, there's nothing to it at all.
It's just like, this will be a cool thing.
Yeah, I guess. I don't. Yeah.
Like that guy showed up on set and he was like, "Hey, I can also speak German," and they were like, "Oh yes,
yes, that'll be rad." Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea why. Any
love it.
decision. I have no idea why any decision in this movie was made from a narrative standpoint. Like, not one.
That's okay.
From an aesthetic standpoint, I get it 100% top to bottom. From a narrative standpoint, not one decision makes sense to me.
Yeah, so maybe like do some drugs and this whole movie will come in alignment, like probably not, but
Probably not.
All right, so let's go for movies, yeah? Or do you have something to add before we get there?
Before we get there, I just want to say we've been really hard on this movie, which it deserves. And this is what I said on Letterboxd too. I would trade a dozen actually good movies for every one movie that looks like this one.
That's fair. I think there are worse movies. There are movies that I feel like I've wasted my time with more. I feel like between 5 and 10% is about probably where it belongs, which is slightly higher than what it's polling. So I don't think you and I are in disagreement here. All right. So let's I don't want to run out of time too much. Yeah. I've talked some about 7. So when we move into 4 movies, 7 is obviously one of them. And the other, just because it uses a lot of the same imagery, and I think you mentioned this in your review that you wrote up, is The Ring. I think they both have this kind of haunted aesthetic to them. I will say something that kills you in 48 hours is not even enough time to be scared about it. It's just a thing that happens, like it's like, oh yeah, I did this thing. Boom, I died. Like I got hit by a bus. Oh shit. I didn't have time to get scared about it. So that being said, I think that is probably a pretty good one to compare this to.
Yeah. And they're also both very damp.
Very, very damp.
They're both very damp movies.
One by rain, the other by a well. But yeah.
There's a lot of rain in The Ring as well. It rains a lot in
dreary.
Seattle, which I think is where it is set. So
we have not done that. We should. That needs to be added to my list. Yeah. I like it. Okay, what did you put?
So I put Silent Hill, which is another movie that makes no damn sense, but is driven almost entirely by aesthetics. It makes more sense than this one, and it's better than this one, but it's pretty much a purely aesthetic movie. And the aesthetics are similar, actually. Between them, there's a very rusted industrial hellscape kind of thing going on in both movies. And then the other one I picked was The Fair-Haired Child, which is a Masters of Horror episode.
Oh, great. Okay.
It's by William Malone again, and I didn't want to pick House on Haunted Hill because that was too obvious. And I didn't want to pick Parasomnia because I can't in good conscience recommend to anyone watch Parasomnia.
Okay. I have not.
So it's his independent film that he made after this, before he got put in director jail forever and has never made anything since. And narratively, it's got a lot of the same problems this one does, but more importantly, its main storyline is really gross.
Oh, okay.
It's basically a Sleeping Beauty thing where there's this woman who's got a disease where she sleeps most of the time. And this guy falls in love with her, even though she's essentially been asleep most of her life and has essentially the intelligence of an 8-year-old.
Oh, okay.
And it's real gross.
Yeah, I don't like that. Okay, so, I was silently thinking to myself, it might be kind of fun to have this guy on sometime. Maybe not talking about that movie though. Yeah.
Maybe not. No, maybe not that one. It's not the movie doesn't make it real gross. It just is. It's one of those things that movies do sometimes where you're expected to just accept that this is okay and romantic, but it's not.
Yeah. It's problematic before it's all of those things. Yeah, I get that. I think that. Real quick question: do you know where we can check out some of those back episodes of Masters of Horror?
I don't actually, so I own them.
Of course you do.
Of course I do. But I don't actually know where they're streaming, if anywhere. I mean, you can you can rent them VOD from Prime and every place you can get VOD things, but I don't know where they're streaming for free, if anywhere.
Very good, very good. All right, so last segment. Here is our anonymous letterbox user. Do you want to read it, or you want me to?
You can go ahead.
Okay, lucky me. So, start of review. Hi, everyone. I'm really sorry to have to tell you all of this, but this is coroner Mike typing. Whilst Fimbley was watching FearDotCom, he had a sudden seizure from one of the many over-the-top, fast-cutting, flashing scenes, and he died. But before he passed, he wanted me to tell all of you that this film makes no fucking sense, it looks awful, and it sounds awful, and that everyone who made this should be put out of business. Whoever thought that the fast-cutting mid-2000s sequences was a good idea was a fucking moron. Seriously. Fuck this movie. Then he died. So, yeah, I think he clearly felt probably closer than I did. So, whatever. All right. Any more parting thoughts on FearDotCom?
No, I think I've been as generous to it as I'm going to be right now.
Which is far kinder than you wrote 1,000 words on this movie, and that is the difference between an amateur and a professional. Because
I genuinely like this movie, even though it is crap. Because it is eccentric, fascinating crap.
Yeah.
And I will take that over good, not fascinating stuff.
Yeah, somebody did something big in this movie, for sure. Yeah. And I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it is something. All right. So, what are we talking about next week?
We're doing the Panic Fest thing next week.
Yes, right? Yes.
So, we're doing Class of 1999.
Very good. I can't wait to talk about that. Another high school horror. That's one of the things I absolutely adore. So it'll be great. I have no idea when that episode will show up to the general public. So 100% you need to sign up for Panic Fest. Sawyer is excited about Panic Fest. I'm excited about Panic Fest. So hopefully you will check us out. So we'll see you then. And until then, class dismissed.